Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, this is our second of 3 episodes for Masters Week 2024. This is our course breakdown episode where we are going to deep dive Augusta National itself and tell you what are the characteristics of this course, what type of golf will succeed here, as well as what are the absolute key stats for this course, what are the comp courses for Augusta National, and then who are the golfers that might play well here. And we are going to run a custom model on betspertsgolf.com's rabbit hole. And so we are going to pretty much give you pretty much everything you will need to know about Augusta National, so that way you can kind of handicap the field and make your own choices. And we're even going to talk about some guys who showed up really well in the custom model that have got my interest this week. Now, if you did not catch our first episode of Masters Week, make sure you go listen to that. That was our Masters player-by-player breakdown, where we literally went through every single player that is in the Masters field, well, except for Akshay Bhatia, because he won his way into the field since we were talking about it. And we went through and just went over that player's Masters history, where their game is currently at, and what their strengths and weaknesses are as a golfer in terms of handicapping what they have for Augusta National. So there's a lot of shows this week. You can get a lot of Masters previews, but you can't get a whole lot where you are going to get info on all 89 players that are in the field that you can use to help make picks for DFS, betting, office pools, one and done, player props, whatever. You can't get information on every single player just anywhere. So make sure you go check out our player-by-player preview if you have not already. Now, the third episode of Masters Week is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be doing a live stream on Wednesday night where you guys can show up, you can check in, ask questions, but we are going to be going over pretty much our picks for all of the games for the Masters. So whether it be DFS, betting, one and done, player props, office pools, whatever, we're going to be going over who we are picking in those situations on Wednesday night. And you can show up, ask questions, give your thoughts, get my thoughts, like whatever you guys need. That's what I'm here for. But Wednesday night is where I'm going to be making all of my official picks as I finally have time to evaluate all of the information that we have available to us all week, all the information that we talked about on these first 2 Masters episodes. So with that being said, if you have checked out this channel before, please go ahead and do me a favor, subscribe to the channel. That way you can be with us for the live stream on Wednesday night, as well as for the rest of the PGA Tour season. If you're listening on audio, you can subscribe to the audio feed as well. The live stream will be clipped to audio so that you guys will still be able to listen to it. And then also, please hit the like button on the YouTube video. Please rate and review the audio. Y'all, I cannot stress enough how much that helps me out, whether you guys know it or not. And it just helps the videos get noticed, helps the channel get noticed, helps grow the community that we're trying to build here. And so I really do appreciate it when you guys do that. All right, so enough with the introductions. Let's go ahead and deep dive the one, the only Augusta National Golf. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, we do not have a flyover for this section of the video like we usually do. Whether you guys know it or not, Augusta National, very, very picky about their rights and their course likeness. So not a whole lot of flyovers available on YouTube, or certainly not any that I want to put out and publish and get myself copyrighted as well. So no flyover on YouTube, but I assure you there's no shortage of Masters highlights or breakdowns of Augusta National that are available on YouTube if you want to, have a little bit of a visual. EA Sports PGA Tour also put Augusta National in the video game last year, which was a pretty big deal. And that's a pretty faithful recreation of it as well, if you prefer to play it on a video game. Now, Augusta National itself is a par 72. It is 7,500 yards, and it was designed by Alistair McKenzie. And this is, in my opinion, a master class of golf course architecture. I'm not like the biggest golf course architecture nerd you will find, but I've played a lot of golf. I've watched a lot of golf. I know a well-designed golf course when I see one, and this is one of them. This is a course that is going to reward bad shots. It is going to reward good shots and punish bad shots and make you strategically think about every shot that you are going to play. There's no one strategy for success that is like a tried and true formula. There is no like one way to win. Like, this is a course where you really strategy, shot making, and course management all come together, and it just creates a great golf environment. It's why this course gets to host the Masters every single year, and it's also pretty darn beautiful to look at. Now, on the scorecard, Augusta National is your standard fair par 72. There are 4 par 3s, 10 par 4s, and 4 par 5s. That's pretty basic for PGA Tour standards. The par 3s are pretty tough. The ones on the front 9, 4, and 6 are long and difficult. You're just looking to get out of those without making a bogey. The par 3s on the back, 12 and 16 are iconic holes that have had a lot of great Masters moments at them, but they're pretty short and difficult. So you're just looking to get out of those with making par as well. And if you can stick it close, that could present a birdie opportunity, especially with the pins where they put them at on Saturday and Sunday. Now, the par fives are where you need to score here at Augusta National. They are the course's 4 easiest holes. They yield the most birdies. They also yield some eagles because all of them can be reachable into if you were able to hit a good drive out there. The par 5 second hole has been lengthened a little bit. That might be a little bit harder to eagle, might be a little bit harder to reach into, but it's still going to be pretty reachable from the longest hitters. But the par fives is where you want to do all your scoring. If you were able to this week play the par fives at -3 in each round, that'll get you to -12 for the week, and that will win more Masters than it won't. And so if you can just pretty much birdie these par fives, tread water on the par threes and par fours, you're going to be all right. And that's the formula for kind of winning at Augusta National. All of the people who win here tend to be good par 5 scorers. Now, in terms of the par fours, the course starts with 2 short ones, hole 1 and hole 3. And then every single par 4 after that is over 450 yards. What that creates is an environment where more than half of the approach shots, in fact, almost 75% of the approach shots here at this course are from over 150 yards distance. That is going to come really in handy from one of the stats that we're going to talk about later. Now, Augusta National, though, it's more than just what you see on the scorecard. There is just a certain je ne sais quoi, shall I say, that make it the most unique course that is played on the PGA Tour and one of the more unique courses in America. It's just, like I said, I can't speak highly enough of Augusta National. First off, most courses in the southeastern United States feature bent grass or feature Bermuda grass greens, right? Especially ones that the PGA Tour plays at, because that's how they're able to, create firm and fast greens is, Bermuda. That's generally the native grass of the Southeast. Well, Augusta National is bent grass greens. And this is because the climate in northern Georgia would likely have dormant Bermuda grass in early April, and they do not want to overseed it with POA like a lot of courses in the Southeast have, especially this year, and make the greens a little bit slower. These greens, they want to play incredibly firm and fast, and these are probably going to be some of the fastest, slopiest greens that you will see all year on the PGA Tour. It is very hard to make long putts here at Augusta National because of how undulating the greens are. It is also very hard to get up and down if you miss the green at Augusta National because of how slopey the greens are. And also, because of these greens being what they are, the chipping is actually different as well, and the chips are going to come from tight lies this week. This is not like a lot of courses on the PGA Tour where the areas surrounding the greens are heavily bunkered or filled up with rough. These short game areas are going to be with short grass, which is pretty much unlike a lot of the courses that you see week in, week out on the PGA Tour. Riviera, Memorial Park, and Southern Hills are really the primary courses that feature this type of setup where most of the short game shots are going to come from short grass. What's also interesting is that because of the uniqueness of these green complexes, putting tends to be a stat that you can really throw out from a general perspective, because poor putters that putt well here tend to continue to putt well here. Like putting course history is pretty sticky here, but putting recent form is not very sticky here. Now, course history overall is pretty darn sticky at Augusta National. In fact, it is the #1 most correlated course for course history on the PGA Tour, and it's by quite a wide margin, right? Like I'm showing on YouTube now the course history tool from Data Golf. You can see just how much the correlation at Augusta National towers all over all the other courses in terms of how predictive course history is year in and year out. And the reason why is because these green complexes are going to be the difference in scoring this week, because off the tee, this does not pose that much of a test. Off the tee, Augusta National features very wide and very hilly fairways. It is not very difficult to hit these fairways. In fact, last year, driving accuracy was 75% for the field on the week. Granted, we also got some softer conditions because of the rain, but that's a pretty expansive driving accuracy number. And so you're not going to be able to separate yourself just by hitting fairways this week. You're not going to be able to separate yourself just by bombing this week. And the rough is almost non-existent here at Augusta National. It's mostly pine straw as opposed to rough grass. And so you're just not going to have a whole lot of shots from the rough like you would have at, say, like a Torrey Pines or a Winged Foot or a Quail Hollow, right? One thing that is important, though, is because of how hilly the course is, you're going to have golfers dealing with a lot of uphill, downhill or side hill lies, which is something that they're not used to week in and week out on most of the course the PGA Tour plays. Like all the TPC courses, they're just very flat and they're like hitting off of a driving range every single time. This is a skill that PGA Tour guys don't get to practice a whole lot, and there is a certain kind of knack for doing it. It's something that growing up playing in North Carolina, I've gotten to do quite a lot because a lot of the courses here can be quite hilly. And so, if anybody on the PGA Tour wants to reach out to me and play around with me at Winding Creek Golf Course in Thomasville, North Carolina, and I can teach you about some uphill, downhill, and side hill lies, right? And that might be actually good prep for Augusta. But that is a skill that not a lot of guys have. And so because of the uniqueness of the greens and because of the uniqueness of the lies that you're going to get from the fairway, which are predominantly from the fairway, you end up with a unique experience that is unlike most of the PGA Tour. Now, from a yearly perspective, if you look at last year, what happened at the Masters, like we talked about, driving accuracy was like at an all-time high. The missed fairway penalty was also pretty darn low here last year. So guys were hitting the fairway, and even if they didn't, they were still in decent shape. But last year, when you look at the leaderboard, the guys who were near at the top of the leaderboard were not the guys who were at the top in terms of strokes gained off the tee. In fact, if you were to sort last year's tournament by strokes gained off the tee, 3 of the top 5 players in terms of strokes gained off the tee missed the cut. Now, the other 2 were the winner, Jon Rahm and Cam Young, who finished T7. But just being able to drive the ball is not just enough to kind of, play well and win here at this tournament. If you do the same thing with approach, though, the entire top 3 of strokes gained approach finished in the top 14 of the tournament. Mito Pereira is kind of the outlier. He was 4th for the tournament in strokes gained on approach, but he gave it all back and then some on the greens. And so, like I said, putting here at Augusta National is not sticky in terms of your history of being a good putter or a bad putter in general, but it's pretty sticky in terms of your history of being a good putter or a bad putter at this course. For instance, if you look at the best putters here last year, it's guys who play this event all the time. Louis Oosthuizen, Kevin Kisner, Justin Rose, Phil Mickelson, Russell Henley, Brooks Koepka, all these guys have extensive Masters history, and so that is why they were able to play well on the greens here. Now, if we were to simplify all this information that we just talked about and talk about what are the key stats to winning this week, the first one that stands out to me is recent form, strokes gained, tee to green. I want to know how guys are playing with every club in their bag except the putter, because like we said, I don't care about their general recent form as a putter. I care about how they play here at this course. But I do want guys who are coming into this tournament playing well. And I also want guys who are good with long irons. There are a few ways you can ascertain that, as opposed to just, watching a lot of golf and seeing with the eye test who's good with their long irons. There's a lot of ways you can ascertain that. Driving distance and apex height are 2 stats that tend to be pretty correlated with guys who are good long iron players. If guys are long off the tee, they're generally better with long irons. That's just generally how it bears itself out. Like when I think of great long iron players on the PGA Tour, Jon Rahm and Tony Finau come to mind. Both those are 2 of the longest hitters on tour. And apex height is another stat that's important as well for that long iron play. But it's also important because you're going to be able to get the ball to rise up and stop more on these super firm and fast greens that have a lot of undulation on them. So if you're coming in with a higher ball flight, that's just generally going to help you. But kind of tying itself in with this long iron play, I want to focus on strokes gained approach, and primarily strokes gained approach from proximities of 150 yards or more, because like we said, about 75% of the approaches are going to come from that distance. I do care about strokes gained around the green this week. You are going to need to be able to chip, particularly on short grass. So if you have any tools at your disposal that can narrow down the surface or narrow down the course for strokes gained around the green, that will benefit you, because this is definitely a different type of course environment to gain strokes gained around the green on, as opposed to your standard PGA Tour fair. When I look at strokes gained putting, I only want it to be for this course or other courses with fast bent grass greens if you do not have the capability to just do Augusta National. In terms of scoring, I want to prioritize bogey avoidance and par 5 scoring. Bogey avoidance basically says, hey, can you put yourself in good positions? Can you put yourself in spots where you can get up and down and avoid making bogeys? Because that's one way you can quickly get yourself out this week, is by being too aggressive, getting yourself into bad spots and spots that you just can't get up and down from. There's a lot of places on this course where if you miss a flag to a certain spot, it's going to be impossible to get the ball within 30 feet. It just is. And so bogey avoidance is a stat that I will look at to kind of factor in a little bit of that course management aspect and kind of factor in a little bit of like how guys manage the course and how they can avoid putting themselves in bad spots. Par five scoring is simply something that's necessary to succeed. You're going to have to score on these par fives if you want to win this golf tournament. And like I said, I do think course history is incredibly important. It is the stickiest course for course history on the PGA Tour. And so you're going to want guys in your DFS lineups or on your betting cards that have a history of playing well here at Augusta National. Now, in terms of comp courses, there are quite a few. Riviera stands out as a course that has had a lot of winners at both these events. John Rahm won at Riviera last year and then won the Masters. Adam Scott has won at Riviera. Bubba Watson has won at Riviera. Phil Mickelson has won at Riviera. The list goes on and on, right? A lot of winners at Riviera have also won at Augusta National. It is also a course that is pretty long, pretty demanding, a lot of long iron play and a lot of short game chipping areas. That's a lot in common. Kapalua is also a course that has a lot in common with Augusta National. It is quite long. It is quite hilly. There's a lot of elevation change and a lot of undulation on the greens, and you tend to see some crossover success there as well. It's currently the host of the Century Tournament of Champions, and this year Chris Kirk won that event, but last year John Rahm did win that event before he went on to win at Augusta National. Quail Hollow is another course that you see a little bit of crossover, but it's mainly just another long southeastern demanding track that's going to feature a lot of long iron play. Quail Hollow is a little bit more similar to your standard PGA Tour fare than Augusta National, however. Now, this is kind of some courses this back end that are more unique to me and my thoughts from what I've researched. TPC Deer Run is a course that has a lot of slanting and sloping lies, uphill, downhill, and side hill lies. Now, it's quite shorter, it's quite easier, but that ability to make shots in an environment like that will bode well here at Augusta National. And both Zach Johnson and Jordan Spieth have won at TPC Deer Run. TPC Scottsdale is another one just as like the ultimate firm and fast environment that's also a shot maker's course where you're going to have to deal with all kinds of slopey lies, particularly in the fairway. So that's another one I would look at as well. And then Memorial Park, home of the Houston Open. It just happened 2 weeks ago, but, it's another long course that is demanding with long iron play that is not that punishing off the tee and is also going to be one where there's a lot of short game chipping areas. And there's a lot of, kind of situations where you're going to be chipping off of fairway grass as opposed to rough. And that's going to be happening this week here at Augusta National as well. All right, so that does it for the comp courses. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rabbit hole and see if we can identify our key stats and who excels at them, and take a look at our custom model. So if you've been with us for the last few weeks here on the PGA Tour, we've been using a tool called the Rabbit Hole that is developed by a company called BetSperts Golf. And I think that they are just outstanding with what they can do statistically. You can filter by all kinds of conditions, time periods, courses, any variety of stats from tee all the way to the green. And I think it's tremendous in terms of helping kind of figure out what golfers I want to back in DFS and betting. And they really allow you to get in the weeds with a lot of different conditions and filters that a lot of sites do not have. So we are going to use the rabbit hole to build a custom model, and I'm going to tell you guys what is going to go in that custom model. Now, I pretty much tinker with the models all week long. So if you want to know who makes the final 10 of my top model, which Akshay Bhatia did last week, by the way, you can find out who makes the top 10 of that model on my Patreon, patreon.com/Mike's Money Picks. All right. So also one other thing. You're not going to hear from me any of the trends that you see for a lot of coverage from Masters when they go like, 12 of the last 13 winners did this. And the reason why is because there's always an exception to every trend, right? Like there's a reason why it's 12 of the last 13 and not 13 of the last 13. There's no hardwired formula. I would rather just target the guys who are good at the skills that I want to target as opposed to trying to, kind of find the ones that fit this mold that 13 of the last 14 winners fit or whatever, right? Because guess what? 13 of the 14 winners probably had the skill set that I'm looking for, and maybe even 14 of the last 14. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the rabbit hole stats. So the first thing I want to do is just get a general overview of this calendar year 2024, who is playing well tee to green. So excluding the putter, who are the top 10 players in the field in the calendar year 2024. And that is going to be Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Hideki Matsuyama, Tony Finau, Siwoo Kim, Akshay Bhatia, my guy, Corey Connors, Justin Thomas, Wyndham Clark, and Shane Lowry as your top 10. Well, who are the best approach players in the field in the calendar year 2020? Well, Scotty Scheffler, Tony Finau, Corey Connors, Austin Eckroat, Shane Lowry, Akshay Bhatia, Nick Taylor, Justin Thomas, Jake Knapp, and Cameron Young, rounding out that top 10. Now, I do want to find some general scoring for the calendar year 2024. So, before we do that, around the green play in 2024, forgot that one. The best around the green player in the field in the calendar year 2024 has been Hideki Matsuyama, followed by Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Lucas Glover, Denny McCarthy, Jason Day, Ryo Hisatsune, Harris English, Tyrrell Hatton, and then Taylor Moore, although Tyrrell Hatton does have a 4-round sample size because he played the Century Tournament Champions and then took the bag and went to live. Now, like I said, now we're going to look at some general scoring, right? So in terms of scoring, we're going to take a look at bogey avoidance. So this kind of goes into that little bit of course management piece we were talking about, right? Like who is able to avoid bogeys? Well, number one is Tyrrell Hatton, which is not shocking because he played one tournament at a very easy course and then dipped. But after Hatton, we've got Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Zach Johnson, Russell Henley, Siwoo Kim, Ludwig Aubert, Denny McCarthy, Hideki Matsuyama, and Matthew Pavone. Now, let's kind of look at the other direction of scoring. So who are the best guys in the field in the calendar year 2024 at birdieing par fives? Tiger Woods and Santiago de la Fuente are at the top on a very small sample size. But after those two, it is Wyndham Clark, Scotty Scheffler, Nick Dunlap, Cam Davis, Rory McIlroy, Steven Yeager, Will Zalatoris, and Xander Schauffele in the top 10 there. And then we also talked about that stat apex height. Well, guess what? The rabbit hole has that as well. These are the guys who hit the highest ball flight in the calendar year 2024, and that is Ben An, Keegan Bradley, Ludwig Aubert, Jason Day, Ricky Fowler, Cameron Young, Wyndham Clark, Tony Finau, Shane Lowry, and Min Woo Lee. All right, now we're going to go ahead and switch gears just a little bit. We're going to take a look at approach play. So in the last 6 months, who have been the best players at long approach shots? Unfortunately, with the rabbit hole, we can kind of filter down specific approach distances, and I'm just going to look at it from the fairway because most of the shots are going to be from the fairway this week. So the top 10 in fairway from 150 to 175, actually, let's just do the top 5 for this one, are Scotty Scheffler, Tyrrell Hatton, Ludwig Aubert, Keegan Bradley, and Sepp Straka. If you lengthen it out to 175 to 200, you've got Cam Young, Nikolai Højgaard, Adam Scott, Austin Eckroat, and Colin Morikawa. And then you go on all the way out to 200 plus. You got Xander Schauffele, Corey Connors, Thorbjorn Olesen, Kurt Kitayama, and Luke List. Now, instead of just looking at those numbers, though, what if we just looked at long golf courses and who excels at approach shots on long golf courses? Because most approach shots on long golf courses tend to be long approach shots, which is what we're going to see this week. So the top 10 in that category are Scotty Scheffler, Corey Connors, Gary Woodland, Tony Finau, Hideki Matsuyama, Akshay Bhatia, Cam Smith, Colin Morikawa, Xander Schauffele, and Will Zalatoris. Now, this is a section you're really going to want to pay attention to. So most sites do not have this. The rabbit hole does. And I promise I'm not getting paid to say this by them. Like I genuinely do believe in this product and genuinely do use it to help make, make my picks in betting, make my picks in DFS and the like, right? So the rabbit hole is able to look at who are good scramblers from shortgrass. Who are good when they're in tight lies and able to get up and down, right? And the best golfers in the field in that, the top 10, have been Justin Thomas, Tyrrell Hatton, Denny McCarthy, Eric Cole, Chris Kirk, Taylor Moore, Gary Woodland, Victor Hovland, Thorbjorn Olesen, and Kurt Kitayama. There's a lot of guys on that list specifically that don't have a whole lot of rounds logged at Augusta National, but that skill, being able to chip from short grass, is definitely going to bode them well here this week. Now, next up, what if I just looked at courses where you're going to be doing a lot of chipping off of tight lies? So, I filtered in those courses, Augusta, Memorial Park, Riviera, and Southern Hills, and just sorted from strokes gained around the green at those courses. And the top 10 are Jordan Spieth, Hideki Matsuyama, Scotty Scheffler, Steven Yeager, Justin Thomas, Shane Lowry, Tony Finau, Ben An, Chris Kirk, and Russell Henley. So in terms of the short game shots that you're going to see at Augusta National this week, those two lists of 10 are the guys that I have the most confident in their short game with what they're going to see here this week. All right, now let's switch it up and let's talk about specifically Augusta National. We talked about how sticky course history is. Well, who are the best golfers in the field at Augusta National? Jordan Spieth, Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, John Rahm, Justin Rose, Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler, Will Zalatoris, Hideki Matsuyama, Dustin Johnson, and Brooks Koepka are your top 10. And then who are the best putters at Augusta National? Well, that's Cameron Smith, Will Zalatoris, Justin Rose, Patrick Reed, Minwoo Lee, Matt Fitzpatrick, Danny Willett, Ricky Fowler, John Rahm, and Harris English. Interestingly enough, there's a few bad putters on that list, like Minwoo Lee, like Will Zalatoris, who are good putters at this course. That kind of speaks to what we talked about earlier, right, with the greens being so unique. However, not everybody has been able to log rounds at Augusta National. So how can I kind of manufacture those Augusta National stats with other courses? Well, let's talk about just bent grass greens, large bent grass greens, and fast bent grass greens. Who putts well on that type of surface? Well, Danny McCarthy, Taylor Moore, Sahith Theegala, John Rahm, Matt Fitzpatrick, Sam Burns, Kurt Kitayama, Tony Finau, Sungjae Im, and Tyrrell Hatton are your top 10 in that category. And then if we just look at all of our comp courses, who are the guys who have the best history strokes gained total at the list of comp courses that we laid out? And that is Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm, Patrick Cantlay, Max Homa, Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, Tyrrell Hatton, Tony Finau, Jason Day, and Colin Morikawa. All right, now what we did, y'all, we threw all of that into a custom model and see who it ended up popping out. Well, care to take a wild guess at who popped out number one? Bet you can probably figure it out. I'll give you a second. Okay, maybe you didn't even need a second. It's Scotty Scheffler. No surprise. If anybody is showing you a custom model this week and Scotty Scheffler is not number one, you need to have serious questions about the validity of that model. He is the best golfer in the field. He's coming in with incredible recent form. He has incredible history at Augusta National. He is an incredible approach player, an incredible around the green player, and his putting at Augusta National has been hit or miss, but his recent putting has been pretty good. So there's pretty much just no real box that Scotty Scheffler does not check. It is no surprise that he is number one in my model. Now, after Scotty, it's where the model gets interesting. Number two for me was Hideki Matsuyama, coming in with incredible form, previous winner at Augusta, won at Riviera this year, like John Rahm won at Riviera last year. That's, of course, has a lot of characteristics, a lot of kind of shots that you're going to see and need here this week at Augusta National. So it really does not surprise me that Hideki was showing up well in my model. It does surprise me that he ended all the way up at number two. Xander Schauffele ended number three, with Tony Finau being number four. Tony Finau is a guy who has not strung together the best finishes in the world recently, but he's been hitting the ball very, very well. His ball striking numbers are incredible. He just hasn't been able to putt. But he's been an okay putter at Augusta National in his career. And so if he's able to bring his recent ball striking with his historical putting at Augusta National, I really do like Tony Finau. I'm not super shocked to see him pop up at number four. Number five is Will Zalatoris. Number six is Rory McIlroy. Not super shocking there. Number seven is Sahith Theegala, who was the first player I had in the $7,000 range on DraftKings. He's a long-term great around the green player who had a great debut at Augusta National last year. So not super shocked to see him there. What I am a little shocked to see was Justin Thomas show up at number 8, because all of the recent form metrics are not particularly going to love Justin Thomas because he just has not had a great 2024. He's been a little up and down, but he's a verifiably good short grass chipper. He has that going for him, and his history at Augusta National is actually a little bit underratedly good. So interesting to see him pop up at number 8, with Corey Connors, speaking of deceptively good in Augusta National history, showing up at number 9, and Shane Lowry showing up at number 10, with Siwoo Kim just on the outside looking in at number 11. Y'all, I know we're going to be doing the DFS picks and all that on Wednesday. Siwoo Kim is one of my early favorites in DFS. He's priced at $7,100 on DraftKings. He's been playing really well tee to green. He really does get around Augusta National pretty well. And so he checks off a lot of boxes, and he's at a very cheap price tag. And he is the guy that he can get scorching nuclear hot. He has the legitimate ceiling to win somebody $1 million in the Millionaire Maker this week in DFS. Now, the first player I had in the $6,000 range was Chris Kerr, coming in at number 13, which surprised me a little bit because he doesn't have much history at Augusta National at all, but he did win at Kapalua this year. He is a pretty good approach player, generally speaking, and he's apparently a pretty good around the green player too. So definitely like to see him there at number 13 in the 6K range on DraftKings, with Taylor Moore being second for the 6K range players, showing up as number 19 for me, and then Keegan Bradley, number 20. Some guys that stood out interestingly to me, Akshay Bhatia, number 26. I was very interested to see where his price tag was going to come in on DraftKings. I think it's very reasonable. If you've listened to the show for a long time, you know I absolutely love Akshay. Also, one thing we kind of forgot to mention with the course breakdown was that lefties really play well at Augusta National. It really does lend itself to a lefty hitting a fade off the tee or with irons. And Akshay's a lefty, and he's an absolute flusher in terms of ball striking. And so, he doesn't have any history playing this event, but that hasn't seemed to really affect him in his young career. I think the kid's got a lot of poise. I don't think it can be stated how much pressure was on Akshay on the 18th green on Sunday at Valero, where he has had the lead the entire tournament. Denny McCarthy has just sunk a birdie, and now Akshay has to answer with a birdie just to make a playoff. And if you make it, you get the right for a playoff to play in the Masters. And if you miss, you're going to be labeled a choke artist, and you don't get to play in the Masters, which, by the way, it would not be fair to label Akshay a choke artist because Denny was just incredible in that tournament. But that's a pressure-filled putt. For a guy who's historically not a good putter, he putts with one of the broomstick putters. And he steps up and buries it. And to me, that says a lot about this kid's composure. He is not going to shrink in the moment. He is going to be a guy who plays well in major championships, and I'm super excited that we get to see him in a major championship year this year, starting off at Augusta National. I am going to be playing him a lot in DFS. I may or may not bet him to win the tournament this week. I'm a big fan of Akshay with you. All right, now, one other thing I want to do is just mention with this custom model, and with a lot of custom models this week, no matter where you're building on whatever site, whether it's this site or another one, it's really hard to get the live guys to show up because of the fact that there's really not reliable live strokes gained data. RickRunGood.com I know has a little bit of a database on there, but it's just not super reliable. So the live guys are not going to show up well in models, and so it does not shock me that John Rahm, Brooks Koepka, and Joaquin Niemann were pretty much non-factors in my model. But those guys you definitely have to measure on a little bit different of a playing field. John Rahm and Brooks Koepka were 1-2 at Augusta last year. John Rahm is the defending champ who's not playing super great on live. Brooks Koepka is playing terrible on live, but that's never seemed to matter in his career ever before because he generally just gets up for the major championships. And I feel like just every major, if you played Brooks Koepka in DFS and bet Brooks Koepka outright to win the tournament, you'd probably be up pretty much substantially lifetime. So, I wouldn't necessarily take too much into account to the fact that the live guys are not showing up well. Now, in terms of like the expensive PGA Tour guys or the short odds PGA Tour guys that did not show up well for me, Victor Hovland all the way down at number 28. My model does not look fondly upon his lack of short game play this year, and definitely not a super great history at Augusta National, or super great history at long golf courses with long approach shots either. So not entirely shocked to see him not model all that well, but Patrick Cantlay modeled even worse. Patrick Cantlay showed up 43rd in my model. So definitely two guys I will probably not be getting to in DFS this week. Max Homa is another guy who did not model well at all, ranking 49th. Colin Morikawa modeled better than I thought he would, but I really didn't think he was going to end up very high, and he ended up 16th. So those are two other ones that are just interesting to look out for. All right, so that does it for the breakdown episode, the course breakdown episode for the Masters. So pretty much, y'all, like I was saying, if you want to know who actually ends up making my DFS lineups, making my betting card, making my one and done entries, and who I'm picking in all my office pools and player props, then tune in on Wednesday for the live stream, because we're going to be talking about all of those game formats there on the live stream. You can give your input, you can give your takes, you can get your questions answered. I will certainly be there to help you guys in any way possible. And really, like, I don't claim to bat 1,000 in terms of my picks, but I do claim to grind out a ton of information and have a lot of accurate information that I do think is actionable to help you handicap and pick this tournament. So be there for that live stream if you want to get that. And really, that's when we're going to dive deeper into the weeds on game theory for DFS and one and done and the like. But between these two episodes, y'all, go back and look at episode 1 if you have not already. We've broken down every player and where they stand heading into Augusta, and now we've broken down Augusta National itself and who should theoretically play well at Augusta. So now it's about putting the practice into action and actually making lineups and betting cards and the like with all this information that we've had, knowing what we know. All right, so that is going to do it for this episode, guys. Like I said, tune in for the live stream on Wednesday. If you like what you saw here in this episode, please hit the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, please rate and review if you are listening on audio. Hopefully, we're able to give you guys plenty of information here in this episode that is going to help you guys out here at the Masters. And like I said, tune in on Wednesday for the live stream and get yourself some more of that help. But y'all, that's going to do it for me here today. Best of luck to you Masters Week. Tune into the live stream on Wednesday. Thank you guys for watching and listening to this point, and I will see you guys next time.